This is the Stars and Stripes in 7, your online source for editorially independent news and information for the U.S. military community. I'm Lamont Easter. In Newport News, Virginia, an Air Force member and his wife pleaded guilty to submitting at least 40 fake loan applications totaling more than $5.1 million connected to the COVID-19 pandemic, according to the U.S. Department of Justice. Malik Meacham, 26, and Jenna Meacham, 25, worked to obtain both Small Business Administration sponsored economic injury disaster loans as well as Paycheck Protection Program loans. Prosecutors said the Meachams falsely claimed that they were owners of at least 5 small businesses. In reality, Malik Meacham was a junior enlisted member of the U.S. Air Force, and Jenna Meacham was unemployed. Between March 2020 and May 2021, Malik and Jenna Meacham submitted at least 19 fraudulent applications for pandemic-related loan benefits. They also linked to more than 20 fraudulent loan applications by the IP address used to submit the applications or wire transfers. Malik and Jenna Meacham pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud affecting a financial institution. They face up to 30 years in prison when they are sentenced on July 29th. In Millington, Tennessee, more than 80 soldiers from the Tennessee National Guard's 268th Military Police Company completed training to prepare for their deployment for an overseas mission. Before leaving Tennessee, there was a departure ceremony at a local high school for the families of the deploying soldiers. The company then flew from Memphis, Tennessee to Fort Bliss, Texas, where they will have some final pre-deployment training before traveling to the Horn of Africa. The 268th is based in Millington and is made up of military police soldiers trained in security operations, base defense, movement control, and law and order. During their year-long overseas deployment, the Guardsmen will perform several missions, including base defense and critical site security. The USS Navy has canceled plans for a port call by one of its warships on Japan's northernmost island amid a sharp increase in coronavirus cases in the country. The USS Stockdale, a guided missile destroyer, and its crew of 240 were scheduled to visit Otaru, Hokkaido. The Stockdale deployed from San Diego with the Carl Vinson Carrier Strike Group and stopped in Guam. When the officials from the Navy Otaru said that the port call had been canceled, the U.S. 7th Fleet confirmed the cancellation, but declined to provide more information as a matter of policy and to safeguard operational security. The order arose after the Japanese government drew U.S. authorities' attention to the spread of cases of COVID-19 in communities surrounding U.S. bases on Okinawa and near Hiroshima. U.S. ships have made regular port calls at Otaru, but the Stockdale's visit was to have been the first in 2 years. The Navy's last stop there was made in 2019 by the USS Blue Ridge, the 7th Fleet's flagship. In other Japan-related news, at Yokota Air Base, hundreds of Japanese troops and aircraft from Japan and the United States took part in an annual jump into a drop zone east of Tokyo. 7 aircraft were involved in the jump, including 3 Air Force Super Hercules, 2 Japanese C-130H Hercules, and 2 Japanese Force Kawasaki C-2s. The jump was hosted by the Ground Self-Defense Force and highlighted the joint relationship between U.S. and Japanese forces that can provide combat power anywhere in the region. The Air Force started participating in the event alongside the Japanese in 2020. The event traces its roots to the 1960s and in the 1970s was open for public viewing. Inclement weather, including high winds, stifled 3 days of jump training and grounded the jumpers, but the troops got off the ground with no glitches. An Army non-commissioned officer who broke her neck and back in a luge crash at the Pyeongchang Olympics will slide for her country again at the Winter Olympics in Beijing. Sergeant Emily Sweeney, a 22-year-old military police soldier from Suffield, Connecticut, told the world about her qualifying for her 2nd Olympic team and expressing being grateful for the opportunity to represent both the Army and Team USA. Luge athletes slide down icy tracks on their backs at almost 90 miles per hour while controlling their sleds with their feet. Sweeney's first games ended in a frightening crash that left her prone for several minutes before she was able to walk over the finish line. turned out she had suffered a broken neck and back. She wasn't sure if she would compete in the luge again. However, Swaney recovered to the point where she got back on the luge track to compete. On a final note, the U.S. Postal Service delivered a letter to an American soldier's family 76 years after it was mailed from Germany. John Gonsalves was a 22-year-old Army sergeant serving in Germany in the aftermath of World War II when he wrote the letter to his mother in Massachusetts in 1945. He was stationed near a Nazi prisoner of war camp that had been liberated by American troops. 89-year-old Angelina Jean Gonsalves was astonished to hold the airmail envelope in her hand after her mail carrier dropped it off at her home in Woburn, Massachusetts, just outside Boston. The letter, penned on long white paper and dated December 6, 1945, had been forwarded from a Pittsburgh mail facility and was addressed to John Gonsalves' mother, also named Angelina and long deceased. The U.S. Postal Service had no idea how it ended up in Pittsburgh after more than 7 decades. And that's all for this edition of Stars and Stripes in 7. I'm Lamont Easter, helping you stay connected.